A political earthquake just shook the heart of the Labour Party. In an unprecedented move, Sir Keir Starmer's entire team has resigned. 43 MPs stormed out in protest, sending shockwaves through Westminster and igniting a scandal that exploded live on television. The nation is watching as the Labour Party spirals into chaos, with questions swirling about the future of its leadership and the impact on the upcoming elections. What caused this mass walkout? How deep does this scandal run? The truth is unravelling right now, and the consequences could change British politics forever. For weeks, tensions have been simmering behind the scenes within the Labour Party, but nothing prepared the country for what happened in that explosive parliamentary session. The resignation of Sir Keir Starmer's entire team didn't come out of nowhere. It was the breaking point of a crisis that had been building in silence. At the centre of this storm lies a massive scandal involving allegations of misconduct, financial irregularities, and a stunning breach of trust. Reports suggest that internal investigations had uncovered evidence that was too damning to ignore, forcing MPs to make a hard choice: stand with their leader or stand for the integrity of the party. The decision to walk out by 43 MPs was not just a protest. It was a loud, unignorable statement that things within Labour had gone beyond repair. As the resignations flooded in, the party was left scrambling for explanations. Starmer, often seen as a steady hand, now finds himself isolated and under intense scrutiny. Political analysts are calling this the biggest crisis Labour has faced in decades. The media frenzy has intensified, with every news outlet scrambling to uncover the next bombshell. But what exactly triggered this chain reaction? Sources close to the party reveal that a confidential report was leaked just hours before the dramatic parliamentary showdown, exposing a web of corruption tied to senior officials and fund mismanagement. This leak set off a frenzy of accusations and counter-accusations, turning what should have been routine politics into a headline-grabbing disaster. Inside the Labour Party headquarters, fear and confusion have taken over. Loyalists to Starmer insist that the allegations are exaggerated and part of a smear campaign orchestrated by rival factions. Yet, even some of Starmer's closest allies have reportedly expressed doubts and concern over the integrity of the leadership team. The mass walkout signals not just a loss of faith in Starmer's leadership, but also a deeper crisis of confidence within the party ranks. Questions now swirl about whether Starmer can hold the party together, or if this scandal will trigger a leadership battle that could tear Labour apart. This scandal does not exist in a vacuum. The timing could not be worse, coming just months before crucial elections where Labour was hoping to make significant gains. Instead, the party finds itself in a state of turmoil, unable to focus on policies or campaigning. Public opinion polls have already started reflecting the fallout, with many traditional Labour voters expressing shock and disillusionment. The opposition is capitalising on this chaos, calling for accountability and immediate resignations. As the dust settles from this historic walkout, the big question remains: can Labour recover from this catastrophic blow, or is this the beginning of a long decline? The scandal that has ignited the mass resignation of Keir Starmer's entire team and the walkout of 43 Labour MPs is more complex and far-reaching than many anticipated. Behind the scenes, a toxic mix of betrayal, corruption, and deep internal divisions came to light, tearing the party apart from within. At the heart of the crisis is an explosive report, leaked just hours before the live parliamentary session that ended in chaos. This confidential document, compiled by independent investigators, revealed a series of serious allegations against senior Labour officials, including misuse of public funds, favouritism in party appointments, and cover-ups of damaging misconduct. The report did not simply highlight isolated incidents. It exposed a pattern of systemic failures that called into question the very integrity of the party's leadership. Many MPs say they felt trapped in a party where truth was being buried and loyalty was prioritised over accountability. Those who demanded transparency were met with resistance and threats, deepening mistrust within the ranks. The leaked report painted a grim picture of a leadership team unwilling or unable to address the problems festering beneath the surface. According to insiders, attempts to raise these concerns through official channels were repeatedly blocked or ignored, fueling frustration and eventually forcing MPs to take drastic action. The walkout was their way of saying they could no longer be complicit in what they saw as a cover-up. The financial irregularities were particularly explosive. The report alleged that millions of pounds in party funds had been misappropriated, diverted to undisclosed projects and personal accounts. Investigators uncovered suspicious transactions and a lack of transparency in budgeting that left many MPs questioning how widespread the problem really was. Critics argue this financial scandal strikes at the core of public trust. After years of campaigning on promises of fairness and justice, Labour now faces accusations of betraying the very voters it vowed to represent. This revelation has sent shockwaves far beyond the party, prompting calls for a full independent public inquiry to restore faith and hold those responsible accountable. But the scandal isn't just about money. Personal misconduct allegations have further inflamed tensions. The report includes testimonies from whistleblowers detailing a culture of intimidation and silence around incidents of harassment and abuse within party circles. These disturbing accounts suggest that complaints were systematically ignored or buried to protect powerful figures. The fallout has been devastating, with some MPs openly accusing the leadership of enabling toxic behaviour and prioritising their careers over the well-being of staff and members. For many, this is not just a political crisis, but a moral reckoning. The mass resignation is being framed as a stand for justice and a demand for a clean break from a corrupt system. Starmer's response to the scandal has been cautious but firm. In public statements, he condemned the allegations and pledged full cooperation with investigations. However, behind closed doors, sources say Starmer is battling to maintain control amid rising defections and open rebellion within his ranks. The departure of 43 MPs represents not just a numerical loss, but a symbolic defeat that undermines his authority and weakens his position as party leader. Political insiders predict that this crisis could lead to a leadership challenge or a fracturing of the party into rival factions. Starmer's future now hangs by a thread, with mounting pressure from party members and the public demanding swift and decisive action. The scandal has also sparked a media frenzy, with news outlets dissecting every development and rival parties seizing the opportunity to attack Labour's credibility. The government has called for urgent accountability measures, and opposition leaders are demanding transparency and resignations. Public opinion polls reveal a sharp decline in support for Labour, with many voters expressing shock, disappointment and distrust. The timing of this scandal could not be worse, coming just months before key local and national elections. Labour's campaign efforts have been overshadowed by the crisis, and analysts warn the party risks losing critical seats if it fails to address these issues quickly and convincingly. As the dust settles, many questions remain unanswered. How deep does the corruption run? Will Starmer survive this political storm, or is his leadership doomed? What will the fallout mean for the Labour Party's future and the wider political landscape? One thing is certain: this scandal marks a turning point, a moment of reckoning that could reshape British politics for years to come. The country is watching closely, and the next moves by Starmer and his party will be critical in determining whether they can rebuild trust or face an irreversible collapse. The immediate aftermath of the mass resignation and walkout has sent shockwaves not only through the Labour Party, but throughout the entire British political landscape. The public outcry was swift and fierce. Citizens across the country expressed disbelief and frustration, grappling with the revelations that their trusted representatives had been embroiled in a scandal of such magnitude. Social media platforms exploded with heated debates, with many calling for urgent reforms and accountability at the highest levels. The media coverage intensified, spotlighting every detail of the scandal and digging deeper into the party's history of internal conflicts and questionable decisions. The widespread sense of betrayal fueled a growing disillusionment among voters, many of whom had pinned their hopes on Labour's promises of integrity and social justice. The political opponents of Labour wasted no time capitalising on the crisis. Conservative leaders and spokespeople issued scathing statements condemning the party's leadership and calling for an immediate investigation. They portrayed the scandal as emblematic of Labour's broader failures and painted a picture of a party in complete disarray. The scandal provided a fresh weapon in ongoing political battles, with rivals leveraging the turmoil to question Labour's suitability to govern. Calls for Starmer's resignation grew louder from opposition benches, some even demanding early elections to give the public a chance to express their judgment. The scandal became a pivotal point for the government's messaging, highlighting themes of stability, trustworthiness, and accountability as Labour's grip on credibility weakened. Within Labour itself, the crisis has deepened existing fissures and sparked fierce internal debates about the party's future direction. The resignation of so many MPs has created a leadership vacuum that some fear could lead to fragmentation. Different factions within the party are already jockeying for influence, with some pushing for radical reform to restore faith and others advocating for a more cautious, incremental approach. The party's National Executive Committee convened emergency meetings to discuss next steps, focusing on damage control and strategies to prevent further defections. However, the atmosphere remains tense and uncertain. Longtime party members worry that unless urgent and transparent measures are taken, Labour risks losing not only the upcoming elections, but also its very identity. This scandal also reignited discussions about the broader issues plaguing British politics, including transparency, accountability, and ethical governance. Many political analysts and commentators frame the crisis as symptomatic of a system in desperate need of reform. Questions about party funding, oversight mechanisms, and whistleblower protections have come to the forefront, prompting calls for legislative changes to prevent similar crises in the future. Civil society groups and political watchdogs intensified their scrutiny, demanding stronger safeguards against corruption and misuse of power. The public's appetite for honest and transparent politics has never been more evident, placing pressure on all parties to clean up their acts or face severe consequences at the polls. Moreover, the ripple effects of this scandal extended beyond the political realm, affecting public trust in institutions more broadly. The sense of betrayal felt by voters is not isolated to Labour, but has contributed to a growing cynicism about politicians and government officials in general. Polls showed a marked decline in confidence in elected representatives across party lines, fueling voter apathy and disengagement. This erosion of trust poses a serious challenge to democratic participation and the legitimacy of political institutions. Experts warn that without significant efforts to rebuild credibility, the political system risks further alienation of citizens, making it harder to address the pressing social and economic issues facing the country. The opposition parties are now positioning themselves as the alternative, promising clean leadership and reform. However, the Labour scandal has complicated the political landscape, as voters remain wary and sceptical. The scandal has intensified competition, with multiple parties vying for the disenchanted Labour base, leading to unpredictable shifts in voter loyalties. Analysts predict that this volatile environment will significantly impact upcoming local council elections and could reshape parliamentary representation. The stakes have never been higher, and all political actors are keenly aware that the fallout from this scandal will influence the trajectory of British politics for years to come. In the midst of this turmoil, Starmer's own position appears increasingly precarious. Despite his efforts to assert control and reassure the public, the loss of key MPs and mounting criticism have weakened his leadership. Rumours of internal challenges and potential leadership contests circulate, reflecting deep uncertainty about his future. Party insiders suggest that unless Starmer can present a clear plan for reform and regain trust, his hold on power may not last long. The leadership crisis threatens to overshadow Labour's policy agenda and distract from critical debates on issues like the economy, healthcare, and social welfare. For now, Starmer faces the monumental task of rebuilding a fractured party and restoring confidence, both within his ranks and among the wider electorate. As the dust begins to settle from one of the most dramatic political shake-ups in recent British history, the question remains, what does this unprecedented scandal and mass resignation mean for the future of the Labour Party and the broader political landscape? The road ahead for Labour is fraught with challenges, uncertainty, and the urgent need for deep transformation. The party must confront not only the fallout of this scandal, but also rebuild its credibility and reconnect with a disillusioned electorate. The challenge is enormous. Restoring trust after such a public betrayal requires more than promises. It demands transparency, accountability, and decisive action. In the immediate term, Labour faces the daunting task of filling the void left by 43 MPs who abruptly walked out. This unprecedented number of resignations is not just a logistical nightmare for the party's parliamentary operations, but a symbolic blow that shakes the very foundation of its leadership. By-elections to replace these MPs are likely to be fiercely contested, with opposition parties sensing opportunity in Labour's weakened state. Meanwhile, remaining members are under immense pressure to demonstrate unity and a clear vision for the future. The party's leadership must navigate this crisis carefully, balancing the demands for swift reform with the need to maintain cohesion and avoid further fragmentation. The scandal has also exposed deep structural weaknesses within Labour's internal governance and oversight mechanisms. Investigations into how such a massive scandal could have gone undetected for so long are now underway, and preliminary findings suggest failures at multiple levels. From weak compliance to a culture that discouraged whistleblowing, these systemic issues require urgent reforms. Labour's National Executive Committee has announced plans to overhaul its governance frameworks, including tighter financial controls, enhanced transparency measures, and strengthened disciplinary procedures. However, critics argue that these reforms must be accompanied by cultural change, a genuine commitment to ethical conduct rather than superficial fixes, to restore public faith. Beyond Labour, this scandal serves as a stark warning to all political parties in the UK. The electorate's patience with corruption and mismanagement is wearing thin, and the appetite for clean, accountable politics is stronger than ever. Other parties are now under increased scrutiny, with voters demanding higher standards and more rigorous checks on their representatives. The scandal has ignited a nationwide conversation about political reform, ranging from stricter campaign finance laws to the introduction of independent ethics watchdogs with real enforcement powers. The pressure on Parliament to act decisively has never been greater, as citizens call for measures that will prevent history from repeating itself. The impact on British democracy itself cannot be understated. Trust in elected officials is a cornerstone of democratic governance, and its erosion threatens the legitimacy of the entire system. The scandal has exacerbated voter cynicism and disengagement, with many feeling that political elites are disconnected from everyday realities. This sentiment is reflected in declining voter turnout in some areas, and a growing belief that change is only possible through radical alternatives or protests. Political analysts warn that if these trends continue unchecked, they could lead to increased political instability, populism, and polarization. Rebuilding democratic trust will require a concerted effort from all political actors, civil society, and the media. For Starmer personally, the scandal represents the most significant crisis of his leadership. Once seen as a figure capable of uniting the party and steering it back to electoral victory, he now faces intense scrutiny and calls for his resignation. The coming months will be critical for him to demonstrate whether he can lead a genuine turnaround or whether the scandal will mark the beginning of the end for his tenure. Political insiders suggest that Starmer's survival depends on his ability to champion reform, engage openly with the public, and rebuild bridges within his fractured party. His response will also shape Labour's image going forward, as a party committed to renewal or one mired in the same old problems. Looking further ahead, the scandal's ripple effects may reshape the British political map in profound ways. The loss of Labour's credibility opens space for smaller parties and new movements to gain traction, potentially altering the balance of power in Parliament. Issues of governance and ethics are likely to dominate upcoming elections, forcing all parties to take clear stances and offer concrete proposals. This period of uncertainty could also serve as a catalyst for broader societal engagement, as citizens become more vocal in demanding accountability and transparency. In this way, the crisis might ultimately contribute to a more robust and resilient democracy, but only if lessons are learned and meaningful change is enacted. In conclusion, the resignation of 43 Labour MPs and the exposure of a massive scandal live on national television, mark a watershed moment in British politics. The fallout has exposed deep vulnerabilities within one of the country's major political parties and has sent shockwaves throughout the political system. The challenges facing Labour and its leadership are immense, with the need for urgent reform, unity, and a restoration of public trust paramount. At the same time, the scandal has sparked a broader dialogue about political ethics, accountability, and democratic renewal across the UK. How this crisis is managed will not only define the future of the Labour Party, but could shape the trajectory of British democracy for years to come.